Polish, which is a Slavic language. You would imagine that it has nothing to do with anything in the Latin world. And yet, very often, I'm surprised at how similar it is. I, who like to translate literature, especially, have noticed that translations between books originally in Polish and then translated into Spanish, or vice versa, between the two languages, are better than translations between Polish and English.
Yeah.
There's something to it. I can give you an example, which is very clear. We use the term fata morgana, which means a mirage.
Yeah.
And fata morgana, as you can even hear, is Latin based.
Yeah.
So the connections are there. That's what I'm saying. The more languages you speak and understand and know, the more connections you find, and the more you realize that we're not all that different.
Well, I
There's
mean,
something connected.
all the languages have the kind of a similar communicable purpose. They just have very different ways about going about it.
Right.
I don't know really anything about Chinese. I've been thinking about delving into it now that I'm out of the maestria, just as a project, and seeing what can be learned in it and what can't. I've heard some things about it. I've heard people say, well, Chinese doesn't have any tenses, for example, like their verbs, they don't have any tenses. Okay, I guess that's cool. To a degree, you think that'd make it easier, right? But you can be sure that they have some way of specifying that something happened yesterday as opposed to some other point, The curious thing would be what structure would they use to convey that? But yeah, it's hard.
I've heard that what's difficult for a Chinese speaker, a native Chinese speaker, in learning English is distinguishing between he, she, it, and all of the possessive forms of pronouns, her, his, its. They don't make that distinguishing point.
That's a curious thing to look at too, if you can find the information on it, if you're learning a new language, is to find out what the natives of that language that you're learning, what kind of problems do they have when they're learning English? It doesn't give you the full picture, but it gives you an element of the picture of how they think about things and how they look at things.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And I also think that the mistakes that someone makes in the second language or the language they're learning reflect that of their original language, because they're maybe falling upon their original language, their native language, and using that to guide them in the other one.
Well, you see it a lot here. When people here in Mexico are learning English, they want to use the with everything, whereas in English we use it for very specific things. But they will say things that, do you like the movies, or do you like the beer,
or even people's names. My brother-in-law used to say, hey, look, it's the Hanna. I'm like, what? It's like, okay, I'm the Hanna. It's cool. It's like the Fonz, no?
Yeah, but it, like you said, it's very reflective, and it kind of helps you give some insights into when I'm speaking Spanish. Yeah, I need to use el or la or los or las, in front of things that I'm talking about when my brain isn't wired necessarily to do that. Those kind of things, if you're very observant, watching people and how they do things, and kind of making notes in your mind every time you hear something like that, they start to give some insight.
And they help you. Absolutely. Like you said, they help you in your own path, learning that language, the language that is native to them. They keep making this mistake. Why? Because in that language, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But I like listening to the mistakes my students make.
Yeah.
It helps me.